Hey, good morning, YouTubers, friends, compatriots. I'm a useful idiot, and today I want to talk about interesting conspiracy theory. And I want to bring this up because everybody's been so fascinated by this missing Malaysian airline mystery. And I don't know, I've been watching pretty much the big headlines, but not following the details. It's a non-story to me, and I feel for all the people who are missing their families and friends. But other than that, I have really no interest in that story. But what I do have an interest in is an old story like this one, an old mystery like this, an old conspiracy theory like this, and it's being revived. And the basic premise is that Hitler escaped from Berlin and went to Argentina, and so survived World War II. And for all you young people out there, Hitler is that really bad guy with the funny mustache that caused that big war back in the 40s, 1940s, called World War II. So that's a little hint for all my American educated compatriots out there, except for my usual crowd, of course. We know all about this kind of shit. So let's get back to the story. So this story is being revived because a guy named Noam Shalev is putting out a new documentary on this whole topic called Revealed. And the reason why is because some new FBI documents have been declassified, or actually some old FBI documents have been newly declassified, and there's been some DNA examination of the remaining so-called Hitler evidence. And it creates a pretty interesting story. And the basic premise is that Hitler was flown out of Germany from that bunker area. And there is known to be a protected route through Denmark, an aerial route. So at the very end of the very waning days of Nazi Germany, this aerial route was protected by what was left of the Luftwaffe for some unknown reason, or a known reason, because there's also a pilot named Baumstadt who claims that he flew Hitler out of Berlin at the end of the war and flew him to Denmark. And he seems to be a reasonably credible witness. And then we have a bunch of material that's available from the Argentinian archives. And so a lot of different things are coming up, and the basic idea is that he got to Denmark and then got on German submarines and then took these submarines off the coast of Argentina. And this is also documented that there was these submarine landings. There are also witnesses, supposedly, to these submarine landings in Argentina, and various people claim that Hitler was aboard these submarines. And then there's his stay in Argentina. And this is part of this documentary where Maid claims that she was waiting on Hitler and everyone was instructed not to talk about it. And there's a lot of interesting side aspects to this story. The idea that he wouldn't have lived very long if he did make it to Argentina, because he had Parkinson's disease and advanced symptoms from drug abuse, and probably would not live very long. Although this whole investigation by the FBI was only dropped in, I think, 1952. So there's speculation that perhaps he died in 1952 or thereabouts. But the FBI documents are interesting. There are a lot of different notes coming back from Argentina of someone claiming that Hitler is there. And when you get into the storyline, they talk about the idea that there just wasn't that much interest in chasing all the wild leads about Hitler spottings, because as you can imagine, they were probably happening all the time, all over the world. But these were certainly more credible, and there was a lot of peripheral evidence to corroborate this story. But where it gets interesting for me is that recently they did forensics on what were supposedly the Hitler relics that were squirreled out of Germany by the Soviet Union at that time. And Russia's finally allowed DNA testing, and they found out the couch fabric is not necessarily, that supposedly has Hitler's blood, apparently is not checking out. And then the skull is not even a male skull. It has a bullet wound in it, and they say that the skull is even not the correct age to even be Ava Braun. So we have a skull that's supposedly Hitler's, that is neither Hitler's nor Ava Braun. So that was very, very, very problematic in this situation, because the only known remains supposedly captured by the Soviets at that bunker in April 30th of 1945, they've been protective of these fragments ever since, and now they turn out to be fake. So that's a very serious problem. And Stalin all along apparently did not believe that Hitler had died. And so this is an interesting dilemma. And we also know that 30,000 to 100,000 Nazis fled to Argentina during the war and after the war. And a lot of their wealth was squirreled away there. And the Nazis had a strong presence in Argentina. In fact, they had one of the only full-fledged Nazi parties outside of Nazi Germany at the time. So the government would have been very protective of Hitler if he was in Argentina. And we also know that a lot of other major figures of the Nazi movement were down in South America. And we also know about operations by the United States government to squirrel away different Nazis for their own use, as did the Soviet Union. But one of the things that's fascinating to me about speculating whether Hitler escaped is because his pilot said that Hitler wasn't the kind of person that would have taken his own life. And that's an interesting thing to say, and that really sticks in my mind. And then also the fact that look at oligarchs all over the world, and for every one that we have of Gaddafi or Mussolini being captured and killed by an angry population, the history has more stories of oligarchs who swirl their money overseas and then surreptitiously skirt away in the dead of night, only to live on. And so it's an interesting idea to speculate whether Hitler survived World War II and escaped down into Argentina. And just an interesting mystery to follow. I can't even imagine what the historical implications would be, although this is interestingly ties in with the video I did about history as propaganda, and the idea that Hitler would have escaped justice and languished in South America in the last days of his life would certainly change the trajectory of history a little bit. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.